Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG review. I am Game Master Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video I am going to be delving into the making a character, character skills, checks, and contests for Conan the Hyborian Age. So I'm really excited about this upcoming Kickstarter. Conan tabletop RPGs had been under the licensing held by Modifiers, and now they've passed on to Heroic Signatures, which also includes Monolith. And so Monolith, who are really well known for their board games and their miniatures and all of that, are now taking on the tabletop role-playing RPG for the Conan IP. So I'm really excited about that as well because they make quality stuff. And this I fully expect to be a quality tabletop role-playing game as well. So now in my previous video, I already have had at least one of the creatives that associated with the writing of the game rules. And that was Matthew John, had already commented on a previous video of this. I certainly welcome him to come onto the channel. Perhaps that will happen as we get closer to the Q4 launch of the Kickstarter. And of course, I've already extended the invitation for any of their team to come on to the channel, and we'll talk about the evolution of this game system and what they're really hoping to not just be successful in the Kickstarter, but I'm hoping to hear some things about a real long view for Monolith's control of the of the IP, and really looking forward to continued support for Conan the Barbarian or Robert E. Howard storytelling in a tabletop role-playing game form. And so really excited about it. And it's an open invitation anytime that they want to come on. They're welcome to. If they want to wait until the Kickstarter actually launches, that's perfectly fine as well. And hopefully a follow-up after the Kickstarter has been completed would also be a lot of fun to see how that whole process worked for them, and and where the game looks like it's going to be 6 months beyond the close of the Kickstarter. So without further ado, I'm going to get into making a character. Although this is the quick start rules, and so I think it's just going to explain some of the stats that you will find on the pre-generated characters, which I will do a whole separate video for that following this one. So making a character, skills. There was also a blurb on equipment there, which I'll probably gloss over. Making checks and contests. So hold on to your seats because I'm expecting a really good ride here going through these basic game mechanics that we're going to come across in the quick start rules. So here we're going to switch views here and go right to making a hero. And I'm going to expand this larger so that you can see it as well. So this quick start includes 5 pre-generated characters, allowing up to 5 players and 1 game master, sometimes shortened to GM, to get playing straight away. The following section provides a quick insight to the various numbers and other information on the character sheets and can be found at the end of this booklet. All right, so we will hold off on that, and when I do that separate video of just looking at the pre-gens and seeing how they were created, that will be a totally separate video. So the stats. In Conan the Hyborian Age, 4 stats determine a character's overall prowess and capabilities: might, edge, grit, and wits. Might is a measure of physical strength. Edge is a measure of the character's physical sharpness, deftness, intuition, alertness, dexterity, and hand-eye coordination. Grit is a measure of the character's pain tolerance, stamina, constitution, and resistance to poisons or the elements. And finally, wits is a measure of a character's eloquence of speech, rhetoric, ability to decipher languages and symbols, knowledge base, deduction, and the ability to read people and detect and tell lies. Wits is also used by sorcerers to decipher magical language and in some cases enhance the effectiveness of spells. All right, so there you have your 4 basic character attributes. Other values. Physical defense is a measure of a character's ability to defend themselves and is used during combat against melee and ranged attacks. Sorcery defense is used to protect against and resist the effects of sorcery and dark arts and is used whenever a character is targeted by a spell. Life points are a measure of a character's physical well-being with a higher value representing the ability to sustain more physical harm before facing any ill consequences. Life points are lost through being harmed or attacked and should be tracked at all times. Stamina points allow for versatile and spontaneous strategies representing the skills of truly legendary warriors. Stamina points may be used during the game to provide a range of bonuses. Though there is no upper limit to how many stamina points a character can have, their available points will reset to whatever their grit stat is at the start of each tale. So that's what an adventure will be called, is a tale. I kind of like that, actually. The flex die. The flex die is a special die that is rolled every time a character rolls dice for any reason. When the flex die roll is maximum value, it triggers a flex, which provides a number of boons for the character during the situation. So that'll be in more depth on page 9. Starting equipment. No adventurer or great warrior is complete without tools of their craft. Each character profile provided with this quick start list, the character's weapons, armor, and equipment on the character sheet, along with any applicable rules. So they're not going to go into too much detail here in the quick start guide, which is fine. This is really designed to play with the pre-gen characters to start off with. Rules. Character types. Many of the rules throughout the game apply to or target a particular type of character or characters. In order to make understanding this easier, the following terms are used throughout. Character, a broad term used to describe all people, creatures, and living beings within the game. So they will often use PCs for the characters controlled by the player and NPCs for those controlled by the game master. And they're going to get into the very, generic words and phrases that we've heard in this, so I'm not going to go into detail beyond that point. The flexibility die, usually referred to as a flex die, represents how actions and attacks have a tendency to swing. That is, sometimes a blow results in a bruise, other times it results in a crushed skull. The flex die is an additional die that the PCs must roll every time they roll dice, unless a specific rule instructs otherwise. Players should be sure their flex die is distinct from the other die they're rolling so as not to confuse their results. A different color or motif, for example. The following table references a number of rules that have not yet been discussed due to the flex die being a pivotal part of the game's core mechanic. We have chosen to introduce it as early as possible in the rules so players can better understand its implication for the various die rolls or dice rolls that they will make. Each PC starts with a D10 flex die, but this can be improved by skills to a D8 or a D6. Though the number of sides on the die gets fewer, this should be considered an upgrade because the likelihood of triggering the flex die is increased. All right, so that's really interesting because it's almost like a roll under kind of situation where you're changing the die roll and reducing it, right? Whenever a flex die is roll result is the maximum value that the die can roll, a 10 for a D10, an 8 for a D8, etc., a special effect called a flex is triggered. To be clear, the flex die's result number is not added to any totals. It is only used to trigger the effect. All right, so yeah, the most skill that you can have is with like a D4, which is basically a 25% chance of getting that that best roll, the highest roll on it. A flex result is still triggered even if the check or attack is being rolled with a result is a failure. All right, so that's really interesting too. So we'll see how that affects. A character may spend flex result in any one of 3 different ways, and these options can depend on the type of roll a character is making. Note that the flex die is only used by PCs. NPCs never roll a flex die. All right, so that gives them an advantage. All right, which again, I kind of like it because in any kind of a Robert E. Howard-esque Hyborian, or just Robert E. Howard-esque in particular, you're playing characters that are supposed to be heroic in nature. They're supposed to be at least marginally better than virtually everybody else. All right, unless they're against an arch nemesis or something along those lines, or player versus player if you're going to do that kind of thing. So I really like the fact that they're kind of laying it out there that PCs will always have an advantage as far as that's concerned. So stamina. When a character scores a flex as part of any roll, they may immediately gain 1 stamina point. Success. When a character scores a flex as part of any check or attack that fails, the check of the attack is instead automatically passed. All right. So again, if you make the flex roll and your attack missed, you made it. If you were making a check and your check failed, but you got the flex die roll, then your check actually passed. Massive damage. When a character scores a flex as part of a damage roll, they may choose to inflict massive damage. To do this, total the damage roll as normal, but also add to the total the maximum result that weapon's allotted damage die could roll. If a weapon has a static damage value instead of the die, then double the damage instead. All right, so let's say you're rolling a weapon that has a D6 damage and you got the flex roll, then it's going to be D6. You're going to roll that normal plus 6 because that's the maximum that weapon could have done massive damage. Note some tales use a varying scale of success for checks, providing more notable outcomes for those who obtain a higher result. When using this flex result on these types of checks, the character is assumed to have attained the lowest level of success, a pass, but only just. All right. So yeah. So if your flex roll allowed you to turn a failure to a pass, it's still only a marginal pass. I'm not going to read through the example, I just gave it. Checks. In Conan the Hyborian Age, the actions of characters are governed mainly by checks and attacks. Checks are made whenever an outcome of a character's action is in doubt. A character does not need to make a check to walk up a flight of stairs, nor do they need to make a check to speak. A character who needs to climb a steep cliff, however, must make a check to determine whether they can do so successfully. How successful a character is at making a check depends in part on their stats. Likewise, a character with an axe does not need to roll to chop down a tree. Trees aren't moving targets and they don't defend themselves. But a character who wants to use the same axe to strike another character, yeah, that's obvious. All right. Difficulty checks. All right, so difficulty of a check. GM is the ultimate authority in determining how difficult a check should be. They assign a difficulty to any in doubt action using the table below. Any result of the check that is equal to or greater than the assigned difficulty is considered a success. A final result that is lower than the assigned difficulty is considered a failure. So a mundane, there's no need to check for it, right? An easy task, you only need to roll a 4 to a 6. Catch a tossed object, for example. A moderate task, a 7 to 9. Crossing a rope bridge, picking a lock. A tough task, climb a cliffside in the rain, tend to wounds of a critically injured person. Pick a lock while distracted is a 10 to 12. And legendary is a 13 plus. Split a taut rope with an arrow, swim to safety while heavily burdened. Conan wants to crush, this is an example, wants to crash through the walls of a picked hut. To do so, he spends an action to charge the wooden beams of the dwelling. The GM considers this a moderate check, assigning a difficulty of 8, using the might stat, meaning that Conan needs at least an 8 to pass. He rolls a d10, scores a 4, and adds his might stat of 6 to the roll, giving him a 10. He has no other bonuses to add to the total and remains a 10. Success. Had he failed the check, the GM might have ruled the movement action was wasted, or perhaps have Conan suffer a damage for slamming into the beams, perhaps both. All right. They didn't mention here that he would roll, because he would have rolled the flex along with this, and that might eradicate the failure, but it would only give him a minimal success. A GM may wish to offer degrees of success to characters. In order to do this, they should select a difficulty required for the minimum degree of success and may reward characters who achieve a higher result. For example, the GM determines that in order to spot a foe, the character must pass an easy difficulty of 5 check. However, if the character's check results in a value of 8 or more, the GM may divulge additional information about the lurking foe that may give the character an advantage in the coming encounter. I might actually set like a preset value to that, like saying something like along the lines of like a +5. If you roll 5 higher than your needed target number, then that will give you additional whatever. The Winds of Fate, rolling a 1. Whenever a character rolls a 1 on their stat die as a part of the check or attack, that roll is immediately failed. Even if the result of their stat +1 would usually mean the difficulty of the meet the difficulty of the roll, a character may use their stamina points, see page 22, to increase the roll of a 1 to a 2 or more, trigger the success flex die result, thus avoiding the failure. As NPCs do not have stamina points, they will always fail a check or attack when they roll a 1 unless they have a special rule that states otherwise. Check modifiers. I'm going to jump right into the 3 rules. So the rule of 3s. Rather than provide a strict list of situational modifiers to represent the various advantages and disadvantages a rugged adventurer might face, GMs are encouraged to think of terms of 3s. Advantages to checks should be represented by applying a +1, +2, or +3 modifier to any result. GMs should be aware that even a +1 can significantly impact the result, a +3 significantly so. Otherwise, a -1, -2, or -3 modifier represents any disadvantages the character might face. As an example, a character who is attempting to spot someone in an area of extreme darkness may get a -1 or a -2 modifier to the check, or the character climbing a cliff face may get a +1 modifier if they have ropes or other items to assist them. In a contest, the modifier can be applied to either side or both as required. Assist. And this comes up a lot. Like I have my own players always ask, like, hey, if we assist each other in this task, is there something that will make it easier to accomplish? So and it's great for dynamic gameplay between the player characters as well. If a character is helped by another character to complete a check, the GM should use the rule of 3s to grant the attempting character a bonus. One additional character assisting might provide a +1, 2 additional characters a +2, and 3 additional, obviously, a +3. If they're trying to do something and they're being opposed by others, a contest, and it's multiple others trying to prevent them from doing something, then they would get the bonuses to their roll. Rerolls. Skills and certain other rules sometimes offer chances to reroll dice. These may be done at any time as long as the character has the ability to do so. That said, a single roll may only ever be rerolled once, regardless of the character's reroll capabilities. So you only get one shot to reroll anything. And only if the situation provides for that, or they have the reasoning for it. In a situation where 2 or more characters are struggling against one another using the same abilities, such as a wrestling or a chase, they are considered to be contests. When a contest occurs, rather than the GM determining a difficulty of for the check, all characters involved make a check, with the highest score being considered the winner of the contest. Ties are resolved in favor of whoever has the highest relevant stat. If there is still a tie, then both parties should re-roll the whole contest until a victor is decided. As with any check, a roll of a 1 indicates an immediate failure. In a contest, this indicates that one side had lost, regardless of the opponent's results. If, however, both parties roll a 1, the contest is considered a tie, and the contest should be re-rolled as above. Example of common checks and contests: kicking open a door, holding a door closed. Meanwhile, enemies try to beat it down from the other side. That's very, very common. An edge check and or contest: painting a picture, forging a signature, tracking, trying to notice a clue, hiding, sneaking, or detecting others. Attempting to hide or sneak is a contest. Picking a lock, walking on a narrow ledge, detecting or disarming a trap. Those are all. So the one that comes up as a contest is attempting to hide or sneak. Grit, let's just focus on the contests that are here. Grit contest: fighting off the effects of fear or intimidation. And the other one is being chased by someone. Chasing someone or being chased by someone is a contest. And finally, contest of wits. We have deciphering languages and symbols. That's a skill or a test. Lying, detecting a lie, persuading or charming others, instilling fear is a contest. I will get into combat in the next video after I go over characters and such. So I will jump over to characters and creating characters, and then I will come back and cover combat. So as you can see, the system has some things in it that are pretty unique, or at least I haven't seen them as it's not a straight up D20 system. All right, and so they did really take this into a new direction from where Modifiers had the Conan 2D20. So that's very good to see that they're at least dabbling in and using other kind of system mechanics that are that are hopefully as intuitive as the other was, and we'll see how that plays out as we go through the rest of the rules. When we take a look at the character sheet, you'll be able to start to see just at first glance of the character sheet how this system is really going to work, because now you have, well, if I'm doing a skill check based on stamina, let's say, then this is where I'm going to see, or actually grit, I should say, against the character's grit. Now I can see what relevant stat is going to go into that roll when we're making the roll, and then I'll see what the character's overall stat die is, and so you'll be able to assign, a fairly basic challenge number for it to set that target number, and I'll roll a few out so that you can see how easy that is to manage and to conceptualize, because not that complicated when you see it done in real time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I got a little bit long-winded on this, but did try to cover as much as I could as far as making a character, which we're going to focus more so in an additional video. But the skills, the checks, and the contests, I really wanted to cover that, pretty well this time around. And then I'll tighten things up and, wait for some people's comments to come in. And I'll tighten up that presentation when we get to doing some actual play testing of it. So you all have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen or at a gaming table sometime soon. Thanks for joining. Remember to like and subscribe and to share and to comment, and you all have a great rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Take care.